Welcome. I have the distinct privilege of sharing with you one of the most famous speeches in history, the Gettysburg Address. It is one that has been taught throughout this nation's history and continues to remind us of the roots of our country. It is fitting that these words be read today in recognition of its 150th anniversary. The Gettysburg Address was delivered by President Lincoln during the American Civil War on the afternoon of Thursday, November 19, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, 4.5 months after the Union armies defeated those of the Confederacy at the Battle of Gettysburg. In just over 2 minutes, Lincoln reiterated the principles of human equality espoused by the Declaration of Independence and redefined the Civil War as a struggle not just for the Union, but also for the principle of human equality. The Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. In conclusion, it is fitting that we end with a poem commemorating the Civil War. The Blue and the Gray, Francis Miles Finch. By the flow of the inland river, whence the fleets of iron have fled, where the blades of grave grass quiver, asleep are the ranks of the dead, under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, under the one the blue, under the other the gray. These in the robbings of glory, those in the gloom of defeat, all with the battle blood gory, in the dusk of eternity meet, under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, under the laurel the blue, under the willow the gray. From the silence of sorrowful hours, the desolate mourners go, lovingly laden with flowers, alike for the friend and the foe, under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, under the roses the blue, under the lilies the gray. So with an equal splendor, the morning sun rays fall, with a touch impartially tender, on the blossoms blooming for all, under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, broidered with gold the blue, mellowed with gold the gray. So the summer calleth on the forest field of gray, with an equal murmur falleth the cooling drip of the rain, under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, wet with rain the blue, wet with rain the gray. Sadly, but not upbraiding, the generous deed was done, in the storm of the years that are fading, no braver battle was won, under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, under the blossoms the blue, under the garlands the gray. No more shall the war cry sever, or the winding rivers be red. They banish our anger forever, when they laurel the graves of our dead. Under the sod and the dew, waiting the judgment day, love and tears for the blue, and tears and love for the gray.